Hello, Biology 202 students. Welcome to your endocrine system lecture. Today we will be covering the structures of the major endocrine system organs, their functions, and some pathology. Today we'll cover the endocrine system's historical background, define its functions, and discuss common endocrine diseases like diabetes. First, we'll explain the differences between endocrine and exocrine. Then we'll dive into all the glands. The pineal gland, the hypothalamus gland, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland, the thymus, the adrenal, the pancreas, the testes, and the ovaries. And then we'll talk about all the hormones they produce and the tissues they target. The study of endocrinology dates back over 2,000 years in ancient China. Even then, practitioners recognized the importance of bodily balance. The term endocrine is derived from the Greek word endo, meaning within, and krinos, meaning to secrete. In the 1800s, scientists proposed the revolutionary idea that chemical communication occurred between organs. This led to the discovery that certain disorders could be treated with extracts from endocrine tissues. The word hormone was coined in the early 1900s, and in 1902, William Bylis and Ernest Starling discovered that chemicals, later named hormones, controlled the pancreas's secretions, challenging the belief that only neural reflexes were involved. Understanding the distinctions between exocrine and endocrine systems helps us appreciate how the body coordinates various physiological processes through different types of glandular secretions. The endocrine system. Let's start by defining the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a network of glands that produce and release hormones. Hormones act as messengers to regulate a wide range of body functions. These functions include regulating metabolism, growth, development, sexual function, reproduction, sleep, and mood. Now let's compare this with the exocrine functions. Exocrine glands secrete substances via ducts or tubules, or directly onto a surface. Examples of exocrine secretions include sweat, saliva, gametes, sebum, and digestive compounds. These secretions have extracellular effects, meaning they act outside the cells. In contrast, the endocrine system functions quite differently. The endocrine system is characterized by ductless secretion, where glands secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream. Hormones, which are chemical messengers, travel through the blood to target cells and organs that have specific receptors for these hormones. Hormonal secretions have intracellular effects, influencing the functions of target cells. Besides endocrine and exocrine signaling, the body also uses other signaling mechanisms such as synaptic and paracrine signaling. In paracrine signaling, cells release signaling molecules that affect nearby target cells. This type of signaling is important for local communication between cells in a tissue. Examples include growth factor and clotting factor, which play critical roles in processes like tissue repair and inflammation. Synaptic signaling is used by the nervous system. Neurons release neurotransmitters into synapses, the small gaps between neurons and their target cells. This type of signaling allows for rapid and precise communication, crucial for functions such as muscle contraction and sensory perception. The pineal gland is a small pea-shaped gland located in the brain, near the center between the two hemispheres. Interestingly, the pineal gland gets its name because it looks like a pine cone. The primary function of the pineal gland is to regulate circadian rhythms, which are our body's natural 24-hour cycles that regulate sleep-wake patterns. It produces melatonin, a hormone that helps control our sleep-wake cycles. Melatonin levels typically rise in the evening, promoting sleep, and fall in the morning, helping us wake up. In the winter months, people tend to produce more melatonin due to the reduced daylight hours. This increase in melatonin can lead to a seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which can cause symptoms like depression, sleepiness, and irritability. Phototherapy, which involves exposure to bright light, can help reduce these symptoms. Research shows that blue light from phones and computer screens stimulates the pineal gland, reducing melatonin production. Therefore, it's recommended to turn off screens at least an hour before bed to fall asleep easier. Many phones have a blue light filter that can help reduce this effect. Next, we have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small but crucial part of the brain. So the last one we had was the pineal gland, which was over here. We have the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus means underneath the thalamus. So thalamus, just below it, is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus connects to this little thing here called the pituitary. So the hypothalamus serves as a link between the nervous and endocrine system. It regulates a variety of essential functions, including eating, drinking, sexual behavior, blood pressure, heart rate, body temperature, the sleep-wake cycle, and emotional states like fear, pain, anger, and pleasure. So again, there is the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus connects the nervous and endocrine system via a portal system, a venous vascular system where blood flows from the capillaries of one organ to another via connecting veins. So if you see two capillary beds connecting two organs, that is a portal system. And with this particular portal system, it is made up of the hypothalamus and the pituitary. Another word for the pituitary is the hypophyseal. So we call this portal system the hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system. Wonderful name. The functions of the hypothalamus we just talked about a little bit, but there's more to it. The hypothalamus releases both releasing and inhibiting hormones, which control the secretion of hormones from the pituitary gland. Major hypothalamic hormones include corticotropin-releasing hormone, gonadotropin-releasing hormone, thyrotropin-releasing hormone, growth hormone-releasing hormone. So all of these are hormones that say, yes, release this, or no, don't release this. So it's regulating a ton of hormones that are found inside of the pituitary. So here we see a diagram illustrating the connection between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, and a chart showing the various hormones regulated by the hypothalamus and their respective functions in the body. You're not expected to memorize all of these regulatory hormones, but it is important to know where and how the pituitary is regulated. So up here we have the hypothalamus, we have the neurons there connecting into this portal system, into this capillary bed, primary capillary bed, which then feeds into the secondary capillary bed, which is found in the anterior pituitary. So what happens is some neurotransmitters are released here. We get the prolactin-releasing hormone. Prolactin-releasing hormone goes through this portal system, and it finds its way into the anterior pituitary, where the anterior pituitary will respond by producing prolactin. Prolactin will then go out through the body via the blood, and it will find a target tissue, the breasts, and cause production of milk. So we'll break down each one of these pituitary hormones because these are what you're expected to know. But it is also very important to know that the hypothalamus hormones are regulating these. You don't have to memorize these ones, but please do understand these. So now we can move on to the pituitary gland. You can see it here highlighted in purple. It is protected in the hypophyseal fossa of the sphenoid bone right here. And the pituitary gland is one of the most important glands we will see in this course. It is involved in practically all further lectures. There are two lobes for the hypophysis. The anterior part of the pituitary, known as the adenohypophysis, secretes several hormones. There's follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, ACTH, GH, prolactin, TSH. It's a little overwhelming at first, but we will break it down. The second part, or the second lobe, is the posterior part of the pituitary, which is called the neurohypophysis. It secretes two hormones, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. So here we can see both an anterior and posterior lobe of the pituitary gland. So here on the left we have the adenohypophysis, or the anterior pituitary, and on the right the neurohypophysis, or the posterior pituitary. Here's a larger image so you can see how they relate to one another. The adenohypophysis is highly cellularized because it produces its own hormones. Under the microscope, you'll see it is composed of simple cuboidal epithelium. Here we can see an image of the anterior pituitary under the microscope. While you won't need to know the specific cell types, it's important to understand the differences between the adenohypophysis and the neurohypophysis under the scope. The key is that the adenohypophysis is highly cellularized because it creates its own hormones. There are acidophiles, which are pink, and the basophils, which are purple. And you can see all these nuclei here. Those are the dark purple. And you can see there's a lot more cells, and there's a lot more pink in the anterior pituitary compared to the posterior pituitary, which is lighter. That's because there's more nervous tissue there. And in nerves, there is more myelin, or fat, and that appears more white. Now, the anterior pituitary secretes a ton of hormones, and it's a little overwhelming at first, but you will get it. So, more hormones, darker color. So, here are the hormones for the anterior pituitary. So, the anterior pituitary secretes these 6 hormones. There are the follicle-stimulating hormone, the luteinizing hormone, the adrenocorticotropic hormone, the growth hormone, the somatotropin, the prolactin, and the thyroid-stimulating hormone. There's a mnemonic to help you remember this. It is FLAG-PT. Let's begin with the first hormone that the anterior pituitary secretes, the follicle-stimulating hormone. Remember, FLAG-PT. Now, both males and females secrete this hormone. However, the effect of this hormone is different. So for females, we get the menstrual cycle, we have follicle development, and the blood estrogen levels on the first half of pregnancy change. For males, the follicle-stimulating hormone produces sperm in the testicles. Now, let's dive into the specific functions of luteinizing hormone, or LH, in both females and males. In females, luteinizing hormone plays a crucial role in regulating the menstrual cycle. It triggers the release of an egg from the ovary, a process known as ovulation. Additionally, it stimulates the ovaries to produce the essential hormones estrogen and progesterone. In men, luteinizing hormone is responsible for stimulating the Leydig cells in the testes to produce testosterone. This hormone is vital for the development of male secondary sexual characteristics. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH, is a tropic hormone produced by the anterior pituitary gland. ACTH is classified as a tropic hormone. This means it doesn't directly affect target cells by itself. Instead, it stimulates other endocrine glands to release hormones that then act on target cells. Specifically, ACTH stimulates the adrenal cortex to release glucocorticoids like cortisol and androgens. We will discuss those hormones in greater detail when we get to the adrenal gland portion of this lecture. Next is growth hormone. Growth hormone is crucial for promoting cell and tissue growth. It's also involved in protein synthesis and homeostasis and a variety of other cell functions. When growth hormone is hypersecreted during the growth years or puberty, it can lead to pituitary gigantism. One famous example is Robert Madlow. He was born in 1918 at a normal size, but developed a pituitary tumor as a young child. The tumor caused increased production of growth hormone, and he never stopped growing until his death at age 22 years old, by which time he had reached a height of 8 feet 11 inches. On the other hand, hyposecretion of growth hormone can lead to pituitary dwarfism. This condition is caused by insufficient growth hormone during childhood, which prevents the body from receiving the signals necessary for normal growth. In adulthood, excess secretion of growth hormone can cause a condition known as acromegaly. This disorder results in the thickening of bones in the hands, feet, and face. For example, this condition wasn't apparent in this female at age 9 or 16, but it became notable by age 33 and even more pronounced by age 52. Another notable case is Sandra Aline Allen, recognized as the tallest woman in the world during her lifetime by the Guinness Book of World Records. She was 7 feet 7 inches tall. Prolactin is a hormone produced by the anterior pituitary gland. It is essential for milk production in the mammary glands. Prolactin stimulates the mammary glands to produce milk and is also involved in breast development during pregnancy. Prolactin levels naturally increase during pregnancy and breastfeeding to support milk production. Disorders related to prolactin include hyperprolactinemia, where excess prolactin can lead to infertility, disrupt menstrual cycles, and galactorrhea, which is milk production not associated with childbirth or nursing. On the other hand, hypoprolactinemia, or low levels of prolactin, can affect milk production and lead to insufficient milk production. The last hormone from the anterior pituitary system is the thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH. It is produced by the anterior pituitary, and its primary role is to stimulate the thyroid gland to produce thyroid hormones, which are crucial for regulating the body's metabolism. Thyroid-stimulating hormone increases the basal metabolic rate, which affects how the body uses energy. It also influences heart rate, body temperature, and overall energy levels. When thyroid-stimulating hormone levels are too high, it can lead to hyperthyroidism, where the thyroid is overactive. Symptoms include rapid heartbeat, weight loss, and increased appetite. Conversely, when thyroid-stimulating hormone levels are too low, it can result in hypothyroidism, where the thyroid is underactive. Symptoms include fatigue, weight gain, and sensitivity to cold. A common disorder related to thyroid-stimulating hormone is goiter, which is an enlargement of the thyroid gland. This can be due to iodine deficiency or other factors that affect thyroid function. Historically, the widespread issue of goiter in the U.S. was significantly reduced thanks to the efforts of David Murray Cowie, a professor of pediatrics at the University of Michigan. He led the U.S. to adopt the Swiss practice of adding sodium iodide or potassium iodide to table salt. On May 1, 1924, iodized salt was sold commercially in Michigan, and by the fall of 1924, Morton Salt Company began distributing iodized salt nationally. By 1924, iodized salt was commonly available across the U.S. In less than a decade, over 90% of the salt consumed in the goiter belt was iodized. The incidence of goiter plummeted, with rates in Detroit dropping from 9.7% to 1.4% in the first 6 years of using iodized salt. Next, let's talk about the thyroid hormones. The thyroid gland is huge in the endocrine system, and there are two hormones, T3 and T4, which you can just call T3 and T4 because pronouncing triiodylethioalanine and thyroxine is a little challenging. Increased basal metabolic rate is associated with both T3 and T4. Calcitonin is responsible for lowering the blood's calcium levels by increasing calcium excretion by kidneys and decreasing osteoclast activity. This promoted calcium deposition, increasing osteoclast activity. The parathyroid glands are 4 small glands located posteriorly to the thyroid gland in the anterior neck. These glands are crucial for maintaining calcium levels in the blood. The parathyroid glands secrete parathyroid hormone in response to low calcium levels detected in the blood. Parathyroid hormone also stimulates the synthesis of vitamin D. Parathyroid hormone stimulates the release of calcium from bones by activating osteoclasts, which lead to bone resorption. Let's walk through this graph. So the parathyroid and the thyroid gland work together to balance out calcium levels, maintaining homeostasis. When blood calcium levels rise, the thyroid detects this and secretes calcitonin. Calcitonin stimulates calcium salt deposition into the bone. So the calcium in your blood goes into your bones. This will lower the calcium levels in your blood. If this goes on for too long and your body doesn't know how to regulate itself, well, now the calcium levels are going to drop, creating imbalance. Those falling calcium levels will stimulate the parathyroid glands to release parathyroid hormone, which then stimulates osteoclasts to degrade bone and its matrix and release calcium into the blood, raising calcium levels. When we talk about the thyroid, we have to look at the histology. The histology shows these large bubble structures. To me, they look like bodies of water. So we have big ponds, and they're filled with thyroid hormones. These are called follicles. The whole thing is a follicle. The center is the colloid, and the cells on the outside are the follicle cells or follicular cells. And then the ones just outside of that are the parafollicular cells. The parafollicular cells are there to secrete the calcitonin. And the follicular cells are just lining. They are the cuboidal epithelial cells of the follicle. The posterior pituitary, also known as the neurohypophysis, is composed of nervous tissue and stores and releases hormones produced by the hypothalamus. It primarily releases two important hormones, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. The posterior pituitary contains axons and nerve terminals of neurons whose cell bodies are located in the hypothalamus. This structure lacks the portal system and the two sets of capillary beds found in the anterior pituitary. Another major difference is the neuroendocrine cells extend all the way down into the neurohypophysis. Thus, the two hormones, oxytocin and ADH, are produced in the hypothalamus and released from the posterior pituitary. Oxytocin plays a crucial role in childbirth by stimulating uterine contractions. It also facilitates milk ejection during breastfeeding. Additionally, oxytocin influences social bonding and emotional responses, contributing to behaviors such as trust and affection. Antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, is also known as vasopressin. It helps regulate water balances in the body. It promotes water reabsorption in the kidneys, reducing urine volume and helping maintain blood pressure. Here we have a diagram showing the pathways of oxytocin and ADH in the posterior pituitary. Next, we are looking at the thymus. The thymus gland is located in the upper chest, just behind the sternum. It's a part of the lymphatic system, and it plays a crucial role in the development of the immune system. The primary function of the thymus is to serve as the site for T cell maturation. T cells are a type of white blood cell that is essential for adaptive immunity, which is the body's ability to recognize and remember specific pathogens. The thymus is larger in newborns and children and gradually shrinks with age in a process called involution. It is most active during early life when it helps develop a robust immune system. The thymus produces the hormone thymosin, which stimulates the development of T cells. The thymus gland is very purple when you look at the histology, And what you'll need to look at is the staining color. So around the outside is the capsule. And then these dark areas here are the cortex. The cortex is the outermost part of these lobes. This is a lobe, and this lighter part here is the medulla. So the cortex is the outer area, and the medulla is the inner area of these lobes. And you'll hear cortex and medulla used a lot in histology. Cortex means the outer surface that we're looking at of some kind of lobe or structure, and the medulla is the innermost part. The adrenal glands are small, triangular-shaped glands located on top of each kidney. Each adrenal gland is composed of two main parts, the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. Adrenal means adrenal gland, the cortex meaning this area here, and the medulla is the deeper area here. The adrenal cortex is divided into three zones: the zona glomerulosa, the zona fasciculata, the zona reticularis. The cortex produces corticosteroids, which include mineral corticoids, glucocorticoids, and androgens. Mineral corticoids, such as aldosterone, regulate sodium and potassium balances in the body. Glucocorticoids, like cortisol, play a key role in regulating metabolism, the immune system, and the body's stress response. Androgens contribute to the development of sex characteristics and reproductive functions. The adrenal medulla produces catecholamines, specifically epinephrine, adrenaline, and norepinephrine, noradrenaline. These hormones are part of the sympathetic nervous system and are crucial for the fight or flight response. They increase heart rate, blood pressure, and blood glucose levels, preparing the body to respond to stress. A lot of students have a hard time with the histology of the adrenal gland. Let's take a look at it under the microscope. Here you can see a section of the adrenal gland. And what you'll notice is, it is really hard to see the layers. Let's look at it step by step. We know that the most superficial part of this gland is a capsule. It's encapsulated here. And then we know there's three layers. So if we go here, we can see a layer here. It's getting a little lighter here, and then it gets dark here. So those are the three layers. And then this deep area here is the medulla. So that might help a little bit, but it is challenging to differentiate those layers. The pancreas is a vital organ located just behind the stomach. It contains both endocrine and exocrine tissue, playing a key role in digestion and blood glucose regulation. The endocrine portion of the pancreas consists of 1 to 2 million clusters of cells known as islets of Langerhans, or pancreatic islets. These clusters contain three main types of cells: alpha cells, beta cells, and delta cells. Alpha cells secrete glucagon, which is released when blood glucose levels are low in order to raise glucose levels. Beta cells secrete insulin, which is released when blood glucose levels are high in order to lower those glucose levels. Delta cells secrete somatostatin, which helps to suppress the activity of both alpha and beta cells until the body has a chance to register the blood glucose levels. In its exocrine role, the pancreas produces digestive enzymes, but we'll talk about that in later classes. Glucagon secreted by alpha cells raises blood glucose levels by stimulating the breakdown of glycogen in the liver. Insulin secreted by beta cells lowers blood glucose levels by facilitating glucose uptake into cells. Somatostatin, secreted by delta cells, inhibits the release of both glucagon and insulin until the body registers what is in the blood. Disorders of the pancreas include diabetes mellitus, characterized by high blood glucose levels. Type 1 diabetes results from the autoimmune destruction of beta cells, leading to insulin deficiency. Type 2 diabetes involves insulin resistance and relative insulin deficiency. The testes are the primary male reproductive organs. They have two main functions. One is endocrine and one is exocrine. The production of sperm is the exocrine, while the secretion of testosterone is endocrine. That's because the testosterone is going to circulate through the blood. The structure of the testes includes seminiferous tubules where sperm is produced. Between these tubules are interstitial cells, also known as Leydig cells, which are responsible for producing testosterone. Testosterone is crucial for the development of male reproductive tissues such as the testes and prostate. It also promotes secondary sexual characteristics like increased muscle, bone mass, and the growth of body hair. Let's take a look at some histology of the testes. So here we see the seminiferous tubules, and here is where sperm is produced. And then we have our Leydig cells here between those tubules where testosterone is produced. All right, there's one more slide after this one, so let's get through it. So the ovaries are the primary female reproductive organ located on either side of the uterus. Much like the male reproductive system, the ovaries have both endocrine and exocrine functions. So there's two hormones being produced, estrogen and progesterone. That's our endocrine function. The ovaries also mature and release eggs. That's our exocrine function. Estrogen plays a key role in promoting secondary sex characteristics, such as breast enlargement, additional subcutaneous adipose tissue, and a higher pitched voice. It also regulates the menstrual cycle. Progesterone prepares the uterus for pregnancy, maintains the key stages of pregnancy, and the hormone estrogen and progesterone are crucial in coordinating the menstrual cycle, which involves the cycling of ovulation and menstruation. Here's a slide of an ovary. So you can see here, let me get my pointer. This is an immature egg cell, and it is in a follicle. And you can see the whole ovary out here, and we have primordial follicles, which you'll learn about later in the female reproductive system. But this is just a good image so you can see what ovaries actually look like histologically. All right, and that is the endocrine system. So for next week, I want to make sure that you check that syllabus. There are due dates in there, and I want you to write those down so you don't miss those deadlines. Ask your TA if you have any questions. Go ahead, just reach out, email them, or raise your hand in class. If you have any disability resources issues or any university excused absences, please make sure you get those taken care of. You can ask your TA if you need help figuring those out. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.